Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Oh, okay. What'd you do last night? I know what you did. You looked up the word dotard. We all did it. Who you kidding over here? We all did it. Dotard. And, you know, until we looked it up, we were saying dotard. What? I like it better as a dotard. President Dotard, everybody. President Dotard. You know, this is unbelievable. We've got this nuclear war of words now that might be followed up with a hydrogen bomb in the Pacific Ocean over the heads of the Japanese. Wow, won't that be fun? But the most looked up word last night in the history of Merriam-Webster was dotard. I like it again, dotard. And I'm wondering, like, if Kim Jong-un wanted to call Donald Trump something, he didn't really have to go that deep in the thesaurus, did he? I mean, because Trump won't understand it. He'll never look it up. I mean, at least we looked it up because we're curious. But, you know, it means a person, an old person who's going senile is what it is. Very clever, Kim. Very clever. Now, I don't know how Trump can respond to this. I mean, if he goes off on the Rocket Man stuff, it's going to make him look even more dotarded because it's old music. You understand? It's old. He's going to have to, like, do, you know, some kind of a TLC and NSYNC, something 90s, I guess. You know, I mean, how retro can you go and not look like a dotard? So it's just, it's interesting. So here you have the statement. This is unfreaking believable what's going on. And don't think Trump didn't react to this statement because Trump takes the bait every single time. You remember walk softly and carry a big stick? Yeah, well, Trump doesn't talk softly at all because he's a bully. And I guess the reason, no stick. Got no game. None. This is why he keeps marrying women from the Eastern Bloc. They're used to this. They're used to the guy having no game but some money, you know, just pay me. All right? It's like, oh, you want this? F you, pay me. Oh, you want that? F you, pay me. I didn't say anything, but that pink dress she wore, wow, that was bad. I mean, all the money in the world cannot buy you taste. It just can't. Luann, the Countess, Luann de Lesseps, you know, Housewives of New York. Yeah, we all watch, right? Or is it just me? I watch them all, even Atlanta. So, yeah, but Luann de Lesseps, she had this really bad techno sort of, what do you call it, auto-tuned record she released. You know, I mean, it's like this 60-year-old woman. She's a dotard trying to get her groove on. And it was called Money Can't Buy You Class. I'm sorry, but, you know, Melania must have that on her iPod. Dotard. On her iPod, playing over and over again. That was a very bad dress. But anyway, here is Kim Jong-un. Here is his statement. This is unbelievable. And he's sitting there, and the Pyongyang. That's all the Korean I know. Pyongyang. Oh, and I know Bai Bao. Bai Bao. Do you know what that means? It's a piece of sports trivia you should love, Brett. It means score. In football, it means goal. Bai Bao. How do I know that? Because I get my nails done. That's how I know. And they're always watching the football on a Sunday. So anyway, here's the statement. And Pyongyang released a photo of Kim Jong. Now, you see, the obvious, you know, when you see a picture of Kim Jong, don't you want to criticize the hair? So what is with the Elton John references? Because now Trump looks like Madman Across the Water, right? I mean, and you know, of course, we named Steve Bannon Razorface a long-ass time ago. So, you know, I don't know, you know, what's going on, but it looks kind of like Kim Jong-un is Donald Trump without the red tie, and Donald Trump is Kim Jong-un supersized, except the hands are the same. And you could tell from the photo. They both have ridiculous hairdos. Ridiculous. Like off the freaking chart. Like, who told these people you could go out looking like that? When Howard wakes up in the morning, I tell him, your hair looks crazy. You can't go out like that. It looks crazy. Crazy. Right, that's why Scotty shaves his hair off. Brett's nearly bald too. I like the look. I mean, it's like and yet we have a president that looks like a wishnik. He looks just like a wishnik, a troll. Remember those little dolls? Looks just like that. All right, here's the statement. The speech. Oh, this is unbelievable. The speech made by the U.S. president in his maiden address on the UN arena. This is not, I mean, we have to put in SIC, right? Because this is the way he wrote it. In the prevailing serious circumstances in which the situation on the Korean Peninsula has been rendered tense as never before and is inching closer to a touch and go state is arousing worldwide concern. Some things don't, see, you can't think in English. Can't do it. When you want to speak another language, got to learn the language, period, end of story. Cannot think in English. So this is being translated into English from the Bao, from the North Korean. Shaping the general idea of what he would say, I expected he would make stereotyped, prepared remarks a little different from what he used to utter in his office on the spur of the moment, as he had to speak on the world's biggest official diplomatic stage. But far from making remarks of any persuasive power that can be viewed to be helpful to diffusing tension, he made unprecedented, rude nonsense one has never heard from any of his predecessors. A frightened dog barks louder. Very philosophical. I'd like to advise Trump to exercise prudence in selecting words and to be considerate of whom he speaks to when making a speech in front of the world. The mentally deranged behavior of the U.S. president, openly expressing on the UN arena the unethical will to totally destroy, in quotes, a sovereign state beyond the boundary of threats of regime change or overturn of social system, makes even those with normal thinking faculty think about discretion and composure. His remarks remind me of such words as political layman and political heretic, which were in vogue in reference to Trump during his presidential election campaign. Okay, he must have gotten the Russian news feed off of his Facebook page, because I don't remember Trump being called a political layman. Something to do with getting laid, but not layman. And political heretic. I don't remember that either. So something's gone wrong. I would check Zuckerberg, his data that he provided to Congress and see if anybody paid in whatever Pyongyang's currency is. It's probably the Kim. Right? It's probably the Kim. Then he goes on. After taking office, Trump has rendered the world restless through threats and blackmail against all countries in the world. He is unfit to hold the prerogative of supreme command of a country, and he is surely a rogue and a gangster, fond of playing with fire rather than a politician. His remarks, which describe the U.S. option through straightforward expression of his will, have convinced me, rather than frightening or stopping me, that the path I chose is correct and that it is the one I have to follow to the last. Now that Trump has denied the existence of and insulted me and my country in front of the eyes of the world and made the most ferocious declaration of a war in history that he would destroy the DPRK, we will consider with seriousness exercising of a corresponding highest level of hardline countermeasure in history. Action is the best option in treating the dotard. The dotard who, hard of hearing, is uttering only what he wants to say. See, some expressions don't translate. He's trying to say he only says what he wants to hear, but it comes out exactly backwards, because they're on the other side of the world. I think the toilet water goes the other way, too. As a man representing the DPRK and on behalf of the dignity and honor of my state and people and on my own, I will make the man holding the prerogative of the supreme command in the U.S. pay dearly for his speech calling for totally destroying the DPRK. This is not a rhetorical expression loved by Trump. I am now thinking hard about what response he could have expected when he allowed such eccentric words to trip off his tongue. Whatever Trump might have expected, he will face results beyond his expectation. I will surely and definitely tame the mentally deranged U.S. dotard, yes, he uses it twice like Nambia, with fire. Love always, Kim Jong-il. On. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs eat. It just doesn't translate. That's like freaky. Okay, you're gonna have to step it up from Elton John, Trump. You're gonna have to step it up, baby. But doesn't it feel like these two dotards are yelling at each other in the mirror? Doesn't it feel like that? I mean, it's so otherworldly. It's so weird. So Trump tweets back, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before. Dude, you're not supposed to test a madman. Why do you think nobody talks back to you?
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of, or how do I install it, or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade, to order from your imagination, or an inspiration photo that you love? Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics or to your countertops or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles, and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
Tales of American Political History with Clinton Porter Hackney.
We've been discussing the Jaybird Woodpecker War in Fort Bend County, Texas. After running black leaders out of the county for the election of 1888 and still losing to the northern carpetbaggers, the Jaybirds became more violent, as did the Woodpeckers in return. On August 16, 1889, it turned into a gun battle, and with their larger numbers, the Jaybirds took control. Texas Governor Lawrence Sullivan Ross showed up with a military unit to establish martial law, and he stayed for 3 days, replacing woodpecker office holders with people acceptable to the Jaybirds. After more than 20 turbulent years of black and northern control, the white citizenry was once again in charge. The Jaybirds called a meeting in October to formally organize the Jaybird Democratic Organization of Fort Bend County, which amazingly dominated Fort Bend County politics for more than 70 years. This is Clinton Porter Hackney at cphackney.com.
This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network.
This is Ezra Levin, Executive Director of Indivisible. Please go to indivisibleguide.com, type in your zip code, find your local Indivisible group, and join the movement to resist Trump's agenda. We've teamed up with Progressive Voices Network to help your community take action and hold Congress accountable.
Donald Trump is the biggest popular vote loser in history to ever call himself president-elect. He will attempt to use his congressional majority to reshape America in his own racist, authoritarian, and corrupt image. If progressives are going to stop this, we must stand indivisibly opposed to Trump and the members of Congress, or MOCs, who would do his bidding. Together, we have the power to resist. And we have the power to win. We know this because we've seen it before. The authors of this guide are former congressional staffers who witnessed the rise of the Tea Party. We saw these activists take on a popular president with a mandate for change and a supermajority in Congress. We saw them organize locally and convince their own MOCs to reject President Obama's agenda. Their ideas were wrong, cruel, and tinged with racism, and they won. We believe that protecting our values, our neighbors, and ourselves will require mounting a similar resistance to the Trump agenda, but a resistance built on the values of inclusion, tolerance, and fairness. Trump is not popular. He does not have a mandate. He does not have large congressional majorities. If a small minority in the Tea Party can stop President Obama, then we, the majority, can stop a petty tyrant named Trump.
Take action and hold Congress accountable. This is Ezra Levin on the Progressive Voices Network, asking you to join the millions who decided to become part of the movement to resist Trump's agenda. Check out IndivisiBleGuide.com to start resisting on your home turf. Keep listening for more ways you can get involved.
This is the voice of the resistance. You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network. Your favorite Progressive Voices shows and your favorite hosts are available anytime, anywhere, on demand. Fully searchable on the PV app, SoundCloud, iTunes, and ProgressiveVoices.com. Randi Rhodes, Nicole Sandler's What's News, The Coffee Cast, Green News Reporter, Pterodactyl, they're all there whenever you want to listen, on demand 24/7. The Corel Cast, Off Kilter, Nurse Talk, Breaking Through, Laura Flanders, dozens more, updated daily and fully searchable on ProgressiveVoices.com and the PV app. Your choice, your schedule, on demand from Progressive Voices.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I'm gonna bomb the shit out of them.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
Oh my God.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary. The Iranian government masks a corrupt dictatorship behind the false guise of a democracy. The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States. We will stop radical Islamic terrorism. We have also imposed tough, calibrated sanctions on the socialist Maduro regime in Venezuela, which has brought a once thriving nation to the brink of total collapse.
Well, Anderson, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigators are reaching to 2006 in a probe that centers on tax and financial crimes of Paul Manafort. It's one indication of the pressure that Mueller's team is placing on the former Trump campaign chairman.
And this guy, Bill Cassidy, just lied right to my face. And by the way, before you post a nasty Facebook message saying I'm politicizing my son's health problems, I want you to know I am politicizing my son's health problems because I have to.
Well, have you ever lied to the American people?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I'm cheating on my taxes.
Unequivocally, you can say no?
I look, again, you want to find something. I've not knowingly done anything to do that, no.
There's a report that the big networks won't hire you because of a, quote, lack of credibility. Is that true?
We are still negotiating with some entities, and I also believe that I'm not going to get into some of the private discussions that we were having with those and other companies and outlets.
Do you think you have a credibility issue, Sean?
I don't.
Stop the hammering! Empty out the goddamn control room and find out where this is going on. It's either there or out there somewhere. Jesus Christ. Oh. Crazy fucking sound coming in my ear, this fucking stupid hammering. It just fucking sucks. It fucking sucks to be out here with this out of control shit.
I'm greatly honored to host this lunch, to be joined by the leaders of Côte d'Ivoire
Ethiopia, Ghana, Guinea, Nambia. Nambia's health system is increasingly self-sufficient.
He's a jackass.
What a week. It was fun. Did you have fun? I had fun. I had fun. So now we've got these two leaders in the world who neither one of them deserved to be called that, but somehow one was born into it, and the other one you had white supremacists voting for him, and we ended up with these two morons, these two mentally degenerative, name-calling bullies. And what like to tame the mentally deranged dotard with fire. So if real life is going to resemble an apocalyptic disaster movie, it might as well include bad movie dialogue, which is what we got in the place of, a real effort at diplomacy or whatever it's going to take. Listen, Kim Jong-un is nuclear. Everybody's got to, just wake up and smell the freaking fission. Okay, because that's what it is. And there's no way that he's giving up these weapons when you have a president who is doing a couple of things. One, quoting Elton John songs. And two, going to the United Nations and saying Iran, who entered into a nuclear agreement that was not only voted on by the UN Security Council, which means it has the praise and the love of China and Russia and the European Union and people not in the whole freaking world, and that everybody has certified, including Trump's own administration, that Iran is in compliance with its agreement to not pursue nuclear weapons. Everyone agrees that that is so. And Trump stands there and insults Iran for whatever reason and says, we want to put this is an embarrassing thing and the world was wrong and everybody's wrong and only I know. So what would make a guy like Kim Jong-un trust or believe anything that this president offers up? Now, what's interesting is you got this Rex, Trump's dog, Rex, who's like running around saying, okay, do an executive order over here. The whole world isn't going to have to obey this executive order, okay? Congress didn't even vote on this executive order. It's not been voted on at the UN Security Council. There were a few sanctions that were voted on at the UN Security Council. That includes Russia and China's yes vote. And that was to limit some of the oil that goes into North Korea, to punish Kim and to make his people wait on gas lines, which we all know everybody hates, right? Because that's why Jimmy Carter was only a one-term president, even though he was amazing. Okay, so that said, remember this. When Japan attacked the United States, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, why did it do it? Yeah, because we put an oil embargo on Japan and people die. So this is why China and Russia, whatever Russia wants to do, Trump's fine with it. He's fine with it because, quite frankly, he is owned. He is Putin's poodle. Okay, that's what he is. And, the reference of him being a dog, that barks louder, made him sound like something more than a lap dog, made him sound like something more than a yappy. He's not more than a yappy. And trust me, I've had yappies. I've had everything. I've had, silky terriers. I have, my little poodle mix. I've had, greyhounders. I've had big dogs. I've had ridgebacks. I've had all kinds. I have had labs. Trump is the yappiest of the yappy dogs. I mean, this is what he does. His bite has no. I mean, Elton John, really? You think that's got bite to it over there in North Korea, where they wake up every single morning to the national song that says our dear leader Kim Jong-un, oh how we love. I mean, that plays every morning in North Korea. Every morning, everyone wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning, not to pray to some otherworldly being, but to pray to their dear leader. Okay, they wake up to music too, but that's the limit of the music. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, I mean, why would Kim Jong-un respect anything that the United States could cobble together with regard to him? He wouldn't, because look at the way he's talking about Iran, who has agreed and has come into the world community and has been certified as being in compliance with their nuclear, deal that we struck. So it makes no sense what he's doing. Nothing he does makes any sense. It's a very weird situation we find ourselves in. And of course, I feel terrible for the Japanese because after Hiroshima, by the way, this hydrogen bomb, that they are threatening to test in the Pacific. This thing, I'll tell you, last month they did a test. You know, listen, you can cross all Trump's red lines. You can cross them all, and he does absolutely not. He's flaccid. He's just flaccid. No stick. I'm telling you. No stick. This is why he's so mean. This is why he's so mean. It's what makes him mean. Some men are made mean because their lives didn't turn out the way that they had planned, or they're disappointed in their children. Some men are just plain mean because they're disappointed in their own physical being. And that is Donald. That is who he is. That is what makes him mean. But the monitoring groups that have been monitoring North Korea as they keep crossing all of Trump's red lines, and Mueller's crossing every red line that was set up by Trump. Oh, my God. I'm going to go through the week in Mueller. It was amazing. And you know why we're having Russia news? I just want you to be, like, super smart about this. You know, Congress was on vacation. We were on vacation. And so there were no leaks. And so we didn't hear anything about Russia for, what, a whole month or 6 weeks that they were on vacation, right? I mean, they're always on vacation, but when they're on vacation, there's no leaks. Then it's all of a sudden they come back into session for, like, you know, the 12 big days in September, and all of a sudden we got a week's worth of news. The Wall Street Journal gets a scoop. The Washington Post gets a scoop. The New York Times gets a scoop. The Daily Beast gets a scoop about Sean keeping all these notebooks. Everybody's got a scoop, you know, this week about Mueller's investigation. It is unfreaking believable, and I have a bullet pointed for you so we can go right through everything we learned about this. But these are crossing all the red lines. Remember, Trump said, you know, if you go back more than 5 years, if you look at my financials, well, of course, Mueller pulled in a guy from the IRS. They're going to look at his taxes. I mean, that's if they haven't already. They said that they were going to indict Manafort, and they're saying this, you know, to other people, and then it gets printed in the news. I mean, it's unbelievable. But remember that the other red line was the red line for North Korea. They can't, if they test one more, fire and fury. And I will rain down with the fire and the fury. Right? He became Jules. He became Jules from Pulp Fiction. Well, last month, North Korea tested the largest of their bombs. This was the 6th test. It had a yield of 250 kilotons, which happens to be 16 times the size of the bomb we dropped on Hiroshima. That's how big his bombs are getting. And now he says that he's going to test a hydrogen bomb bigger than this. And that one was hydrogen too. And by the way, that one caused what, a 6.3? Yep, a 6.3 on the Richter scale it registered, that bomb. That's how big his weaponry has gotten. And so to sit there and give Kim Jong-un exactly what he needs to rally his people around him, you know, sans the morning music and sans the military parades and, you know, all of the threat of labor camps and starvation and everything else that he rains down upon his people to keep them in line. But now you've got the words of the President of the United States. You've got the President of the United States seriously saying on a clip,
the United States has great strength and patience. But if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
Now, that being on tape, on TV, on air, that is going to run on an endless loop in North Korea every single day, right along with that song. Right along with the song that they have to sing every morning at 5 a.m. I'm telling you, why would he? Because he is a dotard. He is. He's a dotard. He's a tard, man. He is. And I'm so glad we have another word, dotard, that we can use, because the other one, you know, just offends so many people, and I don't intend to do that any longer because I've seen American Horror Story Season 1. Just saying. Brother David.
And it's the best of them all. You never heard me say that. Hi, sister.
Hi.
This is the last time I'll be able to listen to you live because the Affordable Care Act has changed my schedule yet again.
Oh.
So I had to call in and tell you, dead on. I love you always, but you already knew that. But yeah, to everything you've said. So I've got a couple of things I need to say.
All right.
First, to the chat room. Hi, chat room. Because the Orange Stain, in his infinite paresis-ridden wisdom, cut the advertising budget for the Affordable Care Act by 90%, nobody knows. So those of you who have Facebook, please, there's this thing going around posting with November 1st to December 15th. Please post and share it, because people literally are not getting. At work, I'm serious. The Medicare people, their hair is on fire, and we're just like crickets. The second thing, and this is so easy, in reference to the Graham Cassidy bill,
which everybody hates.
Yeah, as well they should.
Everybody hates it.
It's not just going to repeal Obamacare; it's going to repeal Medicaid.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
Well, it's a tax bill. It's a tax bill. Listen,
ding, 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 sister.
Right. This is why they've been going after these. I've said this for years, that this is when Bush was trying to privatize Social Security. Okay, I said, oh my God, they're going after one of the biggest tranches of money, and the other big tranche of money is Medicare, Medicaid, and so
thank you.
You know what people need to understand is that the Medicaid money that's going to be evenly divided among the 50 states and with a cap on it is going to like take money from Oregon and take money from Kentucky and give it to Texas, but only up until 2026, and then after that, no Medicaid money, and that's what they're going to use for tax cuts.
Zippity-doo-dah. And if this goes through, that will just be sped up. Yeah.
So what we would have... Well, we would have had a better healthcare system when we were only doing apply leeches and bloodletting.
I love you always. So here's real quick. If people text to the numbers 504-09 and resist, you will get a fax they'll ask you where your zip code is, to your senator. Do it and tell them you do not want Graham Cassidy to pass, because it just can't.
All right.
I love you always.
Me too, you. So I just have to tell you this little aside. While we were prepping here, John McCain came out. Not Lindsey Graham. No, he'll never come out. John McCain came out and said he's a no. He's definitely a no. And they asked Lindsey, are you mad at John McCain? I really thought he was going to cry. He said, no, our friendship our friendship is like, gold. It's everything to me. I don't care how he votes. I don't care what he does. It's like an abusive relationship, isn't it?
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1985. That was the year that the first Farm Aid concert was held in Champaign, Illinois. A retrospective article in Time magazine reported, quote, in the 1980s, American farmers were hit hard by what were, at the time, the worst economic conditions since the Great Depression. Droughts ravaged the fields, property values plunged, loan interest rates soared. Thousands were forced off their land and faced foreclosure and bankruptcy. Farmer suicide rose at alarming rates. The idea to use music to aid the farmers began with Bob Dylan at an event to help African famine victims. Then musicians Willie Nelson, John Mellencamp, and Neil Young took up his idea and ran with it. 50 musicians took the stage at the University of Illinois football stadium. The organizers were joined by such headliners as Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, Billy Joel, Tom Petty, Roy Orbison, Bonnie Raitt, Kenny Rogers, Joni Mitchell, The Beach Boys, Jimmy Buffett, Bon Jovi, Foreigner, and more. The musicians played for 14 hours to a rain-soaked crowd of nearly 80,000. A telethon also helped to bring in donations. It raised $9 million for farm relief. More importantly, it helped raise national awareness of the dire economic conditions faced by many small farmers. Farm Aid has continued to hold concerts for small farmers. In 2015, the 30th anniversary concert was held in Chicago. As an organization, Farm Aid has raised more than $50 million for small farmers.
Now, live for Farm Aid and a concert for America, here's Willie Nelson.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
I just can't wait to get on the road again.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production.
For WIN, I'm Joanne Powers.
Michigan's Civil Service Commission voted this week to amend rules governing collective bargaining for state employees. The commission prohibited bargaining over a number of subjects, including overtime assignments, seniority, and transfers, and allowed departments to pay an extra 20% premium to some hand-selected non-union employees. The commissioners voting in favor were all appointed by Republican Governor Rick Snyder. Nick Shamataro is Director of Legislation and Public Policy for Michigan AFSCME Council 25.
It's a clear-cut attack on the collective bargaining system, and obviously that's what unions do. This is the governor that signed right to work in Michigan, proposed it, pushed it, and signed it into law. So I think his attitude toward collective bargaining rights speak for themselves. It has worked for 40 years. There haven't been any strikes in the state. There haven't been any work stoppages. Our workforce has collaborated with multiple administrations to deal with serious fiscal crises, on the understanding that while we've taken over the last decade probably 10.5% in terms of reductions in compensation and benefits in exchange for respect and dignity, which is the right to collectively bargain working conditions. We kept our end of the bargain.
Shamataro says many of these changes undermine the integrity of the state government.
It does open up the door to corruption.
Graduate student workers at Washington University in St. Louis have filed for a union election, saying that administration decisions routinely disrespect the role of graduate student workers. Seeking to join the Service Employees International Union, they are pushing for improvements ranging from a better deal on health care to dental, vision, and child care benefits. Grace Ward is a member of the student organizing committee, Graduate Workers Forward.
The administration is still adamant in classifying us as students, not workers. The ability to unionize seems to be the only option to make life more livable here.
Ward alleges that the university is trying to intimidate international students working on F-1 visas through claims that if students go on strike, the university would revoke their student status and have them deported. The university is also likely to stall the election in hope that Trump appointees to the National Labor Relations Board overturn the ruling that allows the workers to organize.
We're focusing on maintaining momentum and trying our best to stay unified as the university actively tries to divide us through tactics like were displayed in the F-1 visa thing, and as they try to undermine the ruling that establishes that we are in fact workers. We basically have an administration that's colluding with the Trump administration. So that just makes us feel that this is time sensitive. We need to do it well and make sure that everybody is informed and engaged as union members, but we also need to try to push this through as quickly as we can.
WIN is brought to you in part by the Amalgamated Transit Union, the largest labor union representing transit and allied workers in the U.S. and Canada. Online at atu.org. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit workersindependentnews.com.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
If you've been watching over the past few days, and you haven't, I've found myself in the middle of a battle over American health care. After my son, Billy, had open heart surgery at the end of April, the senator, Bill Cassidy, from Louisiana, came on our show, made some promises and assurances that he did not keep. The reason I had him on the show in the first place is because he started telling people that any plan he supports would have to pass what he called the Jimmy Kimmel test. And then he teamed up with Senator Lindsey Graham to write a bill that most definitely does not pass that test. It doesn't protect people from having their rates jacked up for pre-existing conditions, doesn't prevent insurance companies from putting lifetime caps on how much they'll spend on a person with medical issues, and it cuts a huge amount of money, but maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars in healthcare funding. And Americans, understandably, especially do not like the idea of being priced out of insurance for a pre-existing condition. So the president got involved last night, via Twitter, of course. He wrote, I would not sign Graham Cassidy if it did not include coverage of pre-existing conditions. It does. A great bill, repeal and replace. Which those are the key words, repeal and replace. Because for Donald Trump, this isn't about the Graham Cassidy bill. It's about getting rid of Obamacare, which he hates primarily because Obama's name is on it. He likes to have his name on things, buildings, vodka, you name it. And at this point, he would sign anything if it meant getting rid of Obamacare. He'd sign copies of the Koran at the Barnes & Noble in Fallujah if it meant he could get rid of Obamacare. And then after I accused Bill Cassidy of not telling the truth, the president wrote a tweet of support for him personally. He said, Senator Dr. Bill Cassidy is a class act who really cares about people and their health care. He doesn't lie. He just wants to help people. So I tweeted back. I wrote, that's Great news, Mr. President. Does that mean he'll vote against the horrible bill he wrote? And I know you're going to find this surprising. I still haven't heard back on that, but...
He's still waiting. I got to tell you, now, everybody, listen, everybody hates this bill. Jimmy Kimmel, this was round 3. Now the president is tweeting at Jimmy Kimmel, and Jimmy Kimmel tweets back, and he doesn't answer, just like Kim Jong-un. They're going back. I mean, this is crazy. But I will say, the reason why Jimmy Kimmel has the high ground on this is because Bill Cassidy, Senator Cassidy from Louisiana, oh my God, Louisiana, Alabama, we'll talk about Alabama just, in 2 seconds. But these states, the vanguard of healthcare excellence, these states, the vanguard and, everything that's, progressive and forward thinking, right? This is where we want to take our cues from these freaking states, right? That wouldn't even expand their Medicaid coverage to the poorest people in this country. Like I said, couldn't you find somebody from Mississippi who are dead last in healthcare coverage? I mean, dead last in education, whatever. But he's got the high ground because Bill Cassidy named the Kimmel test himself. He called it the Jimmy Kimmel test. And so now Jimmy Kimmel is uber aware of the Jimmy Kimmel test because his name is freaking on it. And also he is suffering through a baby born with congenital heart disease. So now the right wing, of course, they got to trash Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I will tell you, Jimmy Kimmel, it was a good joke to say that Trump would do, sign, the Quran in Fallujah, on Eid, while the call to prayer was playing. It was a very good joke. But that's not why Trump hates it. Trump hates it because Trump wants tax cuts, and Trump needs money. And the only place to get the money is from these large taxpayer-funded, you contribute every paycheck to the Social Security Trust Fund, the Medicaid Trust Fund, the Medicare Trust Fund. These are the big tranches of money. And while they want to tell you there's no money there, it's all IOUs, they'll take that money so fast and give it to the rich. That's why he wants this undone. That's the only reason why. But it was a good joke, a really, really good joke. That being said, of course, Fox News is all over freaking Jimmy Kimmel, who has this defies a metaphor. I would say he's got no dog in this race, but this complete back and forth between, crazy people that's passing his leadership in this country, it's like, it defies a metaphor. It's like putting lipstick on a dead horse. I don't know. You can't even find anything that's, you'd have to turn to Kim Jong-un and the North Korean language in order to find one. But check this out. Fox is trashing Jimmy Kimmel, but these are the celebrities. Oh, yeah. These are the celebrities that Fox News gives political air to. These are the celebrities who they don't think should shut up. Jimmy Kimmel should shut up because he's part of the Hollywood elite and he's just a comedian and he's out of his league and what does he know? But these are the celebrities who are... Oh, my God. Watch. Or not.
Joining me now, 2017 People's Choice Award nominee Tim Allen.
I'm Chuck Norris filling in for Sean Hannity.
Chuck Norris filling in.
Everybody, one of a kind.
Fabio, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Fabio. Joining me now, actors and Trump supporters Stephen Baldwin and Scott Baio.
Hey, Scott, good to have you back.
Neil, welcome back.
He is the legendary, tongue-wagging, larger-than-life leader of the hard rock band Kiss.
Gene Simmons is in the house, everybody.
The couch just got a lot cooler.
But did you know he is also a serious and successful businessman? And now his famous mouth is doing more than blasting out songs. He's got a lot to say about public policy, from healthcare to taxes and on and on. The one and only Gene Simmons.
Just a sampling. Gene Simmons on healthcare. No offense, because I'm thinking about doing it too, but him and his wife are no strangers to paying their own health care bills because plastic surgery is not covered by health insurance. So really, do we have to go to Gene Simmons for health care information? This is just unbelievable. So Jimmy Kimmel, who has a dog in this race in this way, he's got interests, and his interests are children who were born to parents who don't have the kind of money Jimmy Kimmel has, but have been born with the same kind of, a need, let's say. Maybe not the same. Oh, and by the way, Alex Jones had to rip apart Jimmy Kimmel. This is disgusting. Disgusting. I don't even know how people could sit through this kind of swill. I don't know. I mean, listen, here's the deal. There is, a primary that's going on in Alabama, okay? Now, why do I bring this up? Because I'm not going to be happy until we actually do have secession in this country. And you know what? I really, really believe that just like North and South Korea, we need a demilitarized zone somewhere in the middle, right below the Mason-Dixon line, that goes from east to west or west to east, whatever you like, and just excludes these states, the Mississippis, the Alabamas, the Louisianas. They got to go. I'm so damn sorry. I know, listen, it's like, the evangelical right. They're saying that these hurricanes and these earthquakes and everything, God is telling you to move. Okay, so I'm telling you, you need to succeed and take your weird dotard thoughts and your weird dotard habits and just become the South United States, okay? Just do it again and become the South United States. We'll be the North United States. We'll carve out a little thing for Florida. Anything like in the tip of the penis is the sixth borough, okay? It'll just be one of those, like Taiwan. Do you know what I mean? It'll be like Taiwan. They could fight over us. But honest to God, I will not be happy until we have the North United States and the South United States with a demilitarized zone. Because, listen, they're having themselves a grand old time in Alabama trying to replace Jeff Sessions in the Senate, right? And they have run some of the most ridiculous people. The only one whose name actually fits is Luther Strange, or as Donald Trump calls him, Big Luther Strange. Big Luther. Why does he call him Big Luther Strange? Because he's 6'9". He's a freak, okay? He's a freak. Anyway, so Luther Strange found himself in a runoff situation in the primaries against Judge Roy Moore. Anybody remember Judge Moore? He's the guy that's obsessed, completely obsessed with my guy. He's an evangelical Christian who's obsessed with Moses. He's obsessed with my guy. You killed my other guy and you took him for yourself, and we've been pretty good about it, you got to admit. Even you blamed us for, killing our own king. I mean, come on, get off it. So no, all we got is Moses. We got Moses, right? And he comes down, he had 15 commandments, he dropped the tablets, and now we got 10. And those 10 are the ones that are on, okay, this guy, Judge Roy Moore, he's been thrown off the Alabama Supreme Court twice. 2 times. One, because the Constitution of the United States and the Establishment Clause forbids him to put the 10 Commandments in the court. He wanted to, he spent money, blah, blah, so they removed him. When was the last time you ever heard of a Supreme Court justice being removed? They removed him, okay? 10 years later, the people of Alabama voted him back in. 10 years later, in 2013. He goes back in, he does it again, so they suspend him. They suspend him. And then he retires after the second time he's been removed. Now he's running for Senate. Seriously. Now, I just want you to know, he's obsessed with the 10 Commandments. It's not just that in the court. He's got it over his bed, which makes for a really sexy environment, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm going to covet you. I'm going to covet you. Oh, my God. So he's got it over his bed. He's got it over his fireplace in his mansion, okay? And he's got it at his swimming pool. He's got the 10 Commandments carved into a rock on his swimming. Enough already! That's my guy, and I don't have it carved, okay? I got a little menorah thing. I got a little, on my door. Unbelievable. So they're in a runoff, and Trump is supporting Luther Strange, and Roy Moore is freaking winning in Alabama. Now, we have a candidate, too. The Democrats have a candidate that's going to run against the winner, whether it's crazy Judge Roy Moore, who's been kicked off the Supreme Court 2 times, or it's freaky Luther Strange. Last night, they had a debate, and it was an ass-kissing contest, and, of course, Trump was the ass. They were stepping on each other trying to declare their undying love and devotion to Donald Trump. And Luther was saying, yeah, well, he endorsed me. And Roy Moore was saying, yeah, but I got the National Group, and I got the Ann Coulters, and I got the Steve Bannons, and I got, and Luther saying, yeah, it looks like the unemployment line at the Trump, administration. And Moore is saying, oh, yeah, well, they're throwing a big rally for me. Yeah, well, Trump's coming down to do a rally for me tomorrow. I mean, it was just like this. This is why Alabama has to secede. This is why it has to go. Of course, the Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, and the Louisiana bill. That's another. The bill. Everyone hates this bill from the insurance companies themselves. We will never make progress as long as they're leached onto us. We will. I'm sorry, but they're like barnacles. They are. It's like a symbiotic relationship where they feed off of our tax largesse, and we keep on shoving money into it, expecting that it's going to grow and change and, wake up. It's never going to wake up. The rest of this country is woke, and they're not going to get woken up. There's just no way. Anyway, we do have a Democratic candidate. Joe Biden is down there campaigning for him. His name is Doug Jones. Who's Doug Jones? Doug Jones is a prosecutor. Guess what cases he prosecutes? He prosecuted the last 2 living Ku Klux Klan members who bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. Okay? The last 2 living KKK members were prosecuted by Doug Jones, who is the Democratic nominee in Alabama, who's going to have to run against either Luther Strange, Big Luther, or crazy Judge Roy Moore. And Alabama's going to vote for Luther or for Roy Moore. I'm telling you, it's hope and strange down there.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
Some areas could be without power for 4 to 6 months.
Hurricane Maria devastates Puerto Rico.
The nation's president warned every minute counts to save lives.
Hundreds dead in second Mexico earthquake in 2 weeks. California cities sue the fossil fuel industry for climate change damages. Plus,
we must move forward. We must continue advancing because climate change is not stopping.
French President Emmanuel Macron takes the lead, rallying the United Nations on climate action.
All of those rallies and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
I've never seen winds like this in Puerto Rico. You take a look at what's happening there, and it's just one after another.
I know. Who could have predicted it, Mr. President? This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, the deadly hurricane season continues to continue.
Yes, it does. In the Caribbean, Hurricane Maria made a direct hit on Puerto Rico as a powerful Category 4 on Wednesday, the strongest storm to hit the U.S. island territory since 1932.
And the 3rd strongest storm to ever hit the U.S.
It caused extensive flooding and knocked out power to 100% of the island's electric grid. The mayor of San Juan said infrastructure and electrical grid repairs could take 4 to 6 months. Puerto Rico is already grappling with a deep financial crisis and faces more than $1 billion in damages from Hurricane Irma alone. The economies of all of these Caribbean island nations hit by Irma and Maria are reliant on tourism, and full recovery will take years.
Well, no worries. I'm sure the Republicans in Congress will be happy to send disaster aid to the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico.
The Washington Post reports that 2017 has already had more than a year's worth of named storms based on the long-term average, and we are only midway through hurricane season. What's remarkable about the Atlantic hurricanes of 2017 is both their intensity and how rapidly they're intensifying, getting really bad really fast. According to the acting deputy director of the National Hurricane Center, 2017 has seen more frequent rapid intensification events than than usual. Hurricane Maria may also have set a record for rapid intensification for an Atlantic storm. Meanwhile, a second powerful earthquake in 2 weeks rocked central Mexico as a 7.1. That followed an even larger 8.1 quake that hit the nation's west coast. Tuesday's earthquake has killed more than 200 people, mostly in collapsed buildings, with the death toll expected to rise. Now, there's a common thread here in the impact of these disasters, and that's why we focus on infrastructure and building codes, because building codes and well-designed, resilient infrastructure can mark the difference between life and death, both during and in the dangerous aftermath of a disaster. Both play a crucial role in every community's ability to recover from future disasters, including the accelerating impacts of climate change.
This latest earthquake hit on the 32nd anniversary of the 1985 earthquake that killed some 10,000 people in Mexico City. And while the death toll for this latest one is expected to rise to as many as 1,000, it could be the building codes that have changed since 1985 that ended up saving a lot of lives.
And not speaking of climate change was U.S. President Donald Trump. In his first ever address to the United Nations General Assembly this week in New York, Trump had plenty to say about rogue nations that put the rest of the world at risk, but nothing about the growing threat of climate change. However, French President Emmanuel Macron, in his first address to the United Nations, subtly criticized Trump's decision to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement. He said that voluntary agreement is not negotiable.
Humankind must defend itself by protecting itself. That agreement is not up for renegotiation. We will not backtrack. We will continue to implement the Paris Agreement.
Macron is allocating 5 billion euros for climate action in France, and he called on cities and states around the world to do their part in transitioning away from fossil fuels. To that end, California Governor Jerry Brown at the Climate Week Side Conference in New York announced that the U.S. Climate Alliance, a coalition of 15 states, including New York and California, is on track to cut their carbon emissions 25% by 2025. Brown encouraged other nations to hold fast to their commitments, saying, quote, other countries ought to listen. The U.S. is in all the way on the Paris Accord.
Just not our president, but let's not mention that.
Finally, on Wednesday, San Francisco and Oakland, California became the first major U.S. cities to sue the fossil fuel industry over climate change. Their suit alleges that oil, gas, and coal producers not only caused the greenhouse gas emissions driving rising sea levels, but did so knowingly. And it seeks to hold the industry accountable for billions of dollars in property damages caused by rising seas now and in the future from flooding and coastal erosion.
We sure are counting on the judiciary to save this country and this world a whole lot of late, aren't we?
I'll take what we can get.
Indeed. For much more on all of those stories and many that we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
The more you ignore me, the closer I get.
This has been the Green News Report on the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey!
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Don't buy a house, okay? Don't buy a house. Don't buy no stinking house over here, okay? Not for nothing, but don't buy a house. Just rent is what it is. Oh, I love when he says Mary Cantone came on The View this morning because Scaramucci obviously was invited, but Scaramucci's mother was sitting in the audience over there, and so he got ripped a new ass in front of his mom, in front of mommy. And Mary Cantone, what he said, can I get him out of me? This is what I imagine Lindsey Graham said when McCain pulled out. Can I get him out of me? Yeah, just a little fun. Just a little fun on a freaking Friday. Okay, so this week in Mueller. Okay, here we go. This was amazing. Remember, there were no leaks. when Congress was on vacation. We're on vacation. They went to Wally World. They went around the world. They went on private planes. Tom Price spent $300,000 on private. You know, when I was looking at this Tom Price story, I wonder if you've heard it. Tom Price, the Health and Human Services Secretary, who's always been bitching about government spending when he was a congressman, right? Tom Price was a congressman, and his big thing was the Tea Party, and they were right, and there was too much. Now, all of a sudden, he's a secretary. He's a secretary, and he's sucking off the United States off the teat. And he is making excuses now for why he needs to take a private aircraft. Scott Pruitt, too, from the EPA, who does nothing all day. Nothing. These two are taking private planes. Pruitt has been taking a private plane to the tune of $300,000 to go where? To go to places Amtrak goes. From Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia. From Washington, D.C. to New York City. From Washington, places that you could drive for $45 in gas and $16 in tolls. He's taken $25,000 an hour private jets. Okay? These people are such front-running phonies. It's unbelievable. But the reason I bring this up is because I'm thinking of Congress, and Congress is back in session. All of a sudden, Congress comes back, and we have a whole week of leaks about Mueller's investigation. I mean, everybody got a scoop this week. The lull is done. We went through this big, long lull where all we had to talk about was, St. Croix and Puerto Rico and Dominica and, the Dominican Republic and, Texas and Florida. And now I got it. The lull is over. I don't even know how Houston is doing. Okay, you don't see a word about Houston. You don't see a word about Florida and our recovery here. You don't see anything about it. Okay, you're seeing more about Dominica, and you're seeing more about St. Croix, and you're seeing a little more about Puerto Rico, only because it's fresh. It's fresh, right? But they're without power, which means no one can watch TV there, which means no ratings, which means no coverage. Dominica, they do it because the pictures are so startling. The whole island is decimated. Beautiful little place, 73,000 people, kindest people on the planet, according to people who love the Caribbean. I'm more of a Pacific person, but people who travel the Caribbean say that island is full of the most hospitable, welcoming, warm, wonderful, decent, excellent human beings, and they're wiped out. Puerto Rico, no power. They say, Puerto Rico is part of the United States. These are citizens, American citizens, and they're telling us, they won't have electricity for, months, maybe a year. Really, where is the relief? Where is the infrastructure bill? These are American citizens. We don't get 3 million people in the dark all the time. St. Croix is without power, but that's not our problem, right? We don't give a damn about St. Croix. And when you look at these little places like Dominica, you know what they did in Dominica? They had, container loads of relief supplies. They had container loads of antibiotics and tetanus shots and water and food and all. And when Harvey missed them, when Irma missed them, so many hurricanes. When Irma missed Dominica, Dominica sent all their supplies. They sent it off by sea to St. John to help out St. John, who got decimated in Irma. Then, as soon as they sent off their supplies, here comes Maria. And they don't even have regrets. They don't even have regrets because they thought they did the right thing. Yeah, that's just like Alabama and Louisiana, Mississippi. Yeah, it's just like that. They don't have any hard feelings about the North, right? They don't have any hard feelings, right? South's going to do it again. No. Okay, so Congress is back, and everybody gets a scoop. It's like the most amazing thing. The New York Times reports that Mueller's team told Manafort, expect to be indicted. In that same story, they reported that FBI agents picked the locks to Manafort's Alexandria, Virginia home so that he wouldn't destroy documents that they believed he squirreled away. And that was just the start. Then Wednesday night, the Washington Post reports that emails from Manafort 2 weeks before Trump became the GOP presidential nominee, that Manafort was offering private briefings on the election to Oleg Deripaska, the second largest oligarch, a guy who was worth like $53 billion in Russia by the time he was 29 years old, a guy all mobbed up in right, that Paul Manafort worked for. And then we find out also that Paul Manafort delivered in 2005, when he worked for Oleg Deripaska, a plan to infiltrate American elections through media, through infiltrating the campaigns themselves, and that he didn't run it through Davis Manafort, which was his lobbying company. He ran it through some other company named LOAV, which was the same address as his house in Alexandria, Virginia. And we find out that he gave them this plan, how to disrupt a U.S. election, for $10 million back in 2005. And then we find out that in 2008, his law partner, not that they practice law, they're lobby partners, Rick Davis, actually became John McCain's campaign manager. And John McCain is like, I don't know anything. Nobody's been tougher on Russia than me. This is crazy. And of course, Chuck Grassley is the person who says in a letter to the FBI this week, listen, I need to know if Trump was warned about Russian infiltration because of Manafort, because when Rick Davis was put on McCain's campaign, the FBI notified McCain that Rick Davis was working with Manafort, who was doing really, really lousy things to upend Western democracies, including the United States, to the tune of $10 million. And Rick Davis infiltrated McCain's campaign, and then we ended up with Sarah Palin, whose chief credential was that she could see Russia from, and so she was able to talk about the Russian threat because she could see Russia from her porch, and she understood why Russia, why we had a base in the Aleutian Islands, because when Russia flies to the failsafe, where do you think they're going? What do you think they're doing? Right? All of a sudden, we were hearing Russia talk from the McCain campaign through Sarah Palin. I mean, so McCain today denied that he ever got a briefing, that no one from the FBI ever told him anything about Rick Davis and Manafort, and that Manafort was doing this stuff. I mean, we get all this news all of a sudden. Isn't that something? And then we find out that the actual content of the emails that Manafort wrote, there's some leaking, baby. It's unbelievable. He wrote, if he needs private briefings, we can accommodate. This is according to the Washington Post, and they reported that the emails were using code. They were referring to Oleg Deripaska only by his initials, OVD, and that Black Caviar, they would talk about OVD being the guy who bought you the largest jar of black caviar, and black caviar was a euphemism for money, for compensation. So, and Maloney, who is Manafort's spokesperson, actually had to go before the grand jury, and now we know what he said. He told the grand jury that Manafort was seeking the payment that he was already owed by Oleg Deripaska. So they had some money issues too. And then, of course, Oleg Deripaska, we find out, had taken Paul Manafort to court because Oleg Deripaska not only gave him $10 million for this plan to upend American elections in 2005, but years later, he worked for Oleg from 2005 to 2009, and then he stopped working for Oleg. And then in 2010, he goes to work for Viktor Yanukovych, right? Who is a pro-Russian, figurehead that Putin installs in Ukraine so he could take Ukraine. But anyway, he's working for Oleg, and then after working for Oleg, because Oleg gets booted out, he gggets run out of town by the Ukrainian citizens because they start protesting like crazy. This is what Hillary was referring to, and she was telling them that they should overthrow him because he was, a Putin puppet, and that's why Putin hates Hillary, right? So anyway, after working for Yanukovych, he goes back to work for Oleg Deripaska, and Oleg pays him $19 million for the second round to set up a a media company, a TV company, like an RT. But Oleg says that Manafort was lazy and he didn't get anything done on that front. And, he sued him in the Virgin Islands or the Cayman Islands. He sued him in the Cayman Islands to get his money back because he didn't get what he paid Manafort to deliver. And so these communications, they say they're talking about this $19 million or something like that. That case in the Cayman Islands is still an open case. Manafort is still being sued by a Russian oligarch. Oh, my God. Then we find out that Trump's lawyer, Ty Cobb, is sitting out, lawyers who lunch, they're sitting and talking, and they're saying, that it would be truly shocking if Manafort tried to monetize his relationship with Trump, because Trump would never tolerate it. I'd be shocked if Manafort didn't try to make money off of Trump. His whole life he has made. And by the way, if he tried to make money off of Trump, that would be probably the least offensive thing Manafort's ever made money on. He has represented every authoritarian dictator from in the all the hemispheres. You can't even limit it to one hemisphere.
To speak to Randi, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
Randi Rhodes, Air Force.
By now, most of our listeners know that the official snack of the Randi Rhodes Show is Herky Jerky Jerky. It's delicious, it's fresh, and this month, when you order, not only are you going to get a really great product, but you're going to be contributing to a really great cause. Herky Jerky has partnered with the Houston Food Bank, a nonprofit organization that coordinates with local food banks in the state of Texas and is actively involved in distributing food items to the people devastated by Hurricane Harvey. Herky Jerky has already donated hundreds of bags to jerky to the cause, but with your generosity, we can help even more. For the whole month of September, every order that's placed at herkyjerky.com, Herky Jerky will donate a bag of jerky to the Houston Food Bank. There is no promo code needed. The size of your order doesn't matter. Every order means an extra bag of jerky for people who are suffering through the effects of this devastating, catastrophic hurricane. Herky Jerky would like to thank everyone in advance for their generosity, and with your help, we can all play a small part in helping those that need it most. Go to herkyjerky.com and order now.
I'm David Pakman, host of The David Pakman Show on the Progressive Voices channel. Check out this clip from my show. Russia has TV shows, not a huge shock to anybody. They have a Sunday night panel show called Sunday Evening with Vladimir Solovyov. This past Sunday, Russian politician Vyacheslav Nikhanov, who's a member of the Duma, which is the Russian parliamentary body, said pretty casually that Russian intelligence stole the presidency of the United States in 2016. You'd think, wait a second, we would have heard more about that, but most news outlets were doing wall-to-wall coverage of the hurricane. Nikhanov's statement was first noticed by Julie Davis. Julie Davis runs a pretty critical of Russia media monitoring site known as Russia Lies. And I could play the clip for you. Most of our audience doesn't speak Russian, and we don't know how aggressive Russian media is with YouTube copyright claims. So we're going to skip the clip, but you can find it if you go looking for it. And someone in Russia saying this is something that should make news, but it didn't in the U.S. It's not proof of anything. Putin and the Kremlin have been pretty much denying these allegations for a long time. But the fact that a Russian politician mentioned so casually, sort of as part of like a broader conversation that's going on, as kind of like an obvious admission, like, well, yeah, you know, Russian intelligence did steal the American presidential election. If their goal was to throw America into chaos, then they're doing a really good job of it. And whether this is something that they would say as a lie in order to cause more chaos, we don't really know. But at this point, Pat, consider the various positions of different parties on Russian meddling in the election. Now, this is a different question than did Trump criminally collude with Russia? That's not the question.
That's stage 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, exactly. The question is Russian meddling in the election. Democrats in Congress say Russia meddled in the election. Many Republicans in Congress concede that Russia meddled in the election. Separate question from whether Trump colluded. The intelligence community is unanimous that Russia meddled in the election. We even have a Russian politician saying Russia meddled in the election, and yet you still have Trump supporters saying, oh, it's fake news.
Well, I think they hear that and just feel like, well, I'm not going to trust some random politicians.
Oh, no.
Or I'm not going to trust the intelligence community because they deceived us when it came to Iraq, or they're notorious for setting up dictatorial regimes in developing countries. So I can understand that to some extent. But then on the other side of the coin, who are you siding with? People like Vladimir Putin, people like Donald Trump, who was so easily convinced by Putin and actually wanted to set up some voting integrity commission, some international commission after they got out of a meeting at the G20.
Look at this other thing over here. Here's a new shiny thing for everybody to focus on. Don't pay attention to all the stuff that's happening. Remember, Russia's #1 objective is weaken the U.S., make the U.S. look more ridiculous and less powerful on the world stage. And I was thinking again about Brave New World versus 1984. Neil Postman once wrote, "What Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Aldous Huxley, author of Brave New World, feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture. This, and the Russia stuff and the fake news nonsense from Trump, this is why I believe what we are living through is much more like Brave New World than it is 1984. You've been listening to part of The David Pakman Show on the Progressive Voices channel. For full audio and video podcasts, interviews, and more, go to davidpakman.com and check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The David Pakman Show.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
So we learn all this stuff as soon as Congress comes back, about Mueller's investigation. And we find out that, there were emails 2 weeks before Trump was the Republican nominee. Manafort's writing to this oligarch that he worked for years and years, from 2005 to 9, collected $10 million for a plan, a written plan about how you infiltrate American communications, American political campaigns, and American media with anti-Western ideas and pro-Russian ideas that sow doubt in the minds of the American voter. And in 2008, Rick Davis, who is Manafort's partner, ends up being the campaign manager for John McCain. All of a sudden, we're exposed to Sarah Palin, who becomes the go-to person on all things Russia, really? And Mitt Romney is out there saying, you have no idea, but the biggest enemy that the United States has is Russia. And people going, what are you talking about? Now we know, because inside the campaigns, people understood that they were being infiltrated by Russian spies, by Russian moles, by Russian operatives, by Russian plans. All this stuff is going on in 2008. And then they take it to its natural conclusion after Obama is done, and we have to, because an incumbent president is almost always, except for, Herbert Walker Bush and Jimmy Carter, is almost always, and Richard Nixon, a two-term president, and George Washington, because he didn't want a second term to prove that we could peaceably transfer power. But it's an amazing story now. You find out that Manafort was the guy behind all of this just this week. And then the New York Times finds out that Manafort is still lobbying. And now he's lobbying in Iraq. And he's lobbying in China. Because he says he needs the money, which is crazy. He got $10 million from Oleg Deripaska for the first, stint when he wrote this plan how to infiltrate and upend, American elections and Western governments. And then he got $19 million to set up some sort of a media company that he never set up for Oleg Deripaska. And then he got $16 million from Viktor Yanukovych. That's $45 million, and it's still not enough for him. Plus, now we find out that Manafort is looking at him for money laundering because a lot of his purchases went through the Bank of Cyprus, which is a common outlet for dubious cash. And they're also looking at, other people around Trump, if not Trump himself. They're looking at Jared. They're looking at 666 Park Avenue. They're looking at, Jared, Bayrock, which built Trump Soho. They're looking at Flynn's trips to Russia now. They're looking at Carter Page's trips to Russia now. They're looking at the 2016 meeting in Trump Tower with Russians now. That was Jared Kushner's meeting with a state-controlled Russian bank head who was under sanctions. And, this network of Russian connections is getting mighty, mighty thick. It's unbelievable. So what does Trump do? He tweets this morning that it's all a hoax. Meanwhile, Facebook is served a search warrant last Saturday, I think. They were served a search warrant for these Russian ads that we found out were not only placed on Facebook, but were targeted, like micro-targeted, something Jared Kushner bragged about to Forbes magazine during the campaign, that he fell in love with Facebook's micro-targeting capabilities. So you've got him and, Scavone and Brad Pascal down there in San Antonio, who understood the beauty of Facebook. They spent oh my God, they spent millions of dollars on Facebook. And now all of a sudden we find out the Russians, they had thousands of ads floating around Facebook. They were organizing rallies in Florida and Texas and Pittsburgh and Scranton. The Russians were organizing American voters to support Trump. And Facebook realizes, oh crap, we just got served a search warrant. And all of a sudden yesterday, you have Mark Zuckerberg saying, well, we did an internal investigation and yeah, we found some stuff and we're turning it all over. That is a complete 180 from what Facebook's position used to be. Facebook's position used to be that, whatever people do on Facebook is protected and it's private and it belongs to the company. And they don't have to share any property. They don't have to share any, information on who buys ads. But they're now in the political realm, and we do have... It's a lame agency. I mean, it's so funny. People always want to cut the agencies in the United States, right? And they always want to go after, Betsy DeVos wants to kill the Department of Education, and Tom Price wants to kill the Health and Human Services. And, these people who hate government, they want to be plants inside various agencies to kill the agencies. And this is why they can't govern, because they hate government to begin with. So they never learned how to govern. They learned how to destroy things, which is very easy to do. The State Department, Rex Tillerson hates the State Department, okay? So he's trying to kill it. Wilbur Ross hates the Commerce Department, so he's trying to kill it. But nobody ever looks at the Federal Election Commission, which does absolutely nothing. And if ever there was a time for it to step up to the plate, right along with their friends, the FCC, who does nothing. You want to know why we're not on terrestrial radio? Because, this week, for some strange reason, I got over 12, maybe 15 requests to put this show back on these terrestrial radio stations in various places around the country, Colorado and Eureka, California. And I'm very flattered, and I'm very, moved that people still, trust their radio stations to me and want us to do this. But I said to them, the FCC did one thing since the Telecommunications Deregulation Act in 1996, which is what, 30 years ago, 96, 2000, 20 years ago? I mean, in 20 years, they did one thing. And you know what that thing was? They said that if you curse on the radio, used to be the company you worked for had to pay the fine. Okay? They switched that and they said, oh no, the company is free of any responsibility, no liability, even though they're the ones that carry the big insurance policies. They said that if I would curse on terrestrial radio, I would be fined $325,000 per curse word. And they have this nebulous list that nobody's ever seen. George Carlin made a list famous, but that list really doesn't exist. It was just a joke. But they have these, depending on the administration, some people say you could say asshole, other people say you can't. In 1992, I could. Now in 2016, they say you can't. Then you couldn't say, back then you could say goddamn. Now they say you have to say GD, whatever it is. You know what? I'm not getting into that arena. I can't afford to get into that arena where if I say something that the Trump administration latches onto as being something prohibited, even though it's not in writing, what the prohibited words are, I could find myself in a court defending myself against a $325,000 fine for each time I said anything they dispute. So that's why we can't go back on terrestrial. And it really breaks my heart because there are people that want this show and I would love to give it to them. But I just, we don't have a dump system. It's very expensive. They don't have a dump system. And half of these places aren't manned 24/7. So there's nobody like Brett, is sitting at the board right now. We don't have a dump system because I don't have a need for a dump system. But anyway, so that is the only thing the FCC has done in the last 20 years. And the FEC is just as lame as the FCC. So when you talk about getting rid of government agencies, although I will say, this is a time for the FEC to put on its big boy pants and actually enforce election law, because that's what the Federal Election Commission is supposed to be doing. I guess Facebook is afraid that the, sleeping giant will wake up one day and that they will start saying to Facebook, hey, political ads are a different form of advertising than anything else because it affects democracy and you can't get paid in rubles because that's foreign contributions. And Trump also might go down because of these foreign contributions that obviously Manafort was connected to the Kremlin. Manafort was connected to oligarchs. Flynn was connected to the Kremlin. He was seated. So was Jill Stein. Hate to say, Jill Stein was at that dinner. Flynn was at that dinner in Moscow. Putin was sitting there. What's his name? Rex Tillerson got the Medal of Freedom or Friendship or whatever they call it in Russia from the people around Trump all can be tracked directly to Putin and his KGB. I mean, it's the most amazing, thick as thieves group. What are the odds? Okay, really, what are the odds? So anyway, we found out this week Facebook is going to cooperate. They're going to turn over these thousands of ads that were purchased by Russia and that were in certain people's feeds. Now, these ads were not public ads. They were micro-targeted, as Jared loved to brag about, to certain people. And if you weren't part of that micro-targeting, you never saw it. You never saw these ads. Like every Friday, I put money behind the show. Okay, I buy ads for the show on Facebook. And so every Friday, it ends up in news feeds that I've micro-targeted. And people can't figure out how to get rid of me, okay? Because I micro-target conservatives, and I micro-target, men, white, Republican. I mean, there's all kinds. Now, Facebook had some categories that were mind-blowing. And trust me, if you've ever experienced, trying to do an ad on Facebook, I'm telling the truth. If you haven't, you're just going to have to either try it yourself or just trust us or read about it. I don't care which one of those three you do, but you should learn this. The Facebook had categories like Jew hater. The Facebook had categories like Hitler did nothing wrong. The Facebook had all these different categories that were built on people's profiles, things that they identified with, things they liked, things they clicked on. It's unbelievable the amount of micro-targeting that can be done. How Russia figured it out, I don't know, but that Jared was bragging about micro-targeting, that Brad Pascal said that he was using micro-targeting. I think they spent like $20 million on Facebook. Russia, I think, spent a lousy $100,000, but now we're finding out that what you can buy on Facebook for $100,000 is astronomical. Astronomical. So this is Mark Zuckerberg's statement yesterday.
Maybe the most important step we're taking is we're going to make political advertising more transparent. So when someone buys political ads on TV or other media, they're required by law to disclose who paid for them.
Right.
But you still don't know if you're seeing the same messages as everyone else. So we're going to bring Facebook to an even higher standard of transparency. Not only will you have to disclose which page paid for an ad, but we will also make it so you can visit an advertiser's page and see the ads that they're currently running to any audience on Facebook. We will roll this out over the coming months, and we will work with others to create a new standard for transparency in online political ads. Fourth, we will strengthen our own ad review process for political ads. Now, to be clear, it has always been against our policies to use any of our tools in a way that breaks the law, and we have many controls already in place to prevent this. But we can do more. Most ads are bought programmatically through our apps and website without an advertiser ever speaking to someone at Facebook.
See, I'm going to stop it right there. That is a huge problem, because when you engage in purchasing ads, I worked in, radio for my whole life, and it wasn't public radio. It was commercial, the Evil Empire radio, and then it was, a couple of other companies, and then back to the Evil Empire, because everybody that hears the show wants the show, okay? And so I worked for the Evil Empire for years and years and years. And trust me, when you represent an advertiser, I even do it, like I represent Herky Jerky. I know the owner of Herky Jerky. I know he lost his business in this hurricane, okay? And so he needs you to buy from him online at herkyjerky.com. But if I didn't know him, if I didn't communicate with him, if I didn't, check his credit to understand that he could pay his bill, this is what goes on in the commercial world. If you try and buy a TV ad, you're going to talk to a salesperson. That salesperson is going to talk to their sales manager. They're going to run a credit check on that advertiser and make sure that they could cover the ad buy. Same in commercial radio, okay? It's really these commercial enterprises like TV news, cable news, radio, everything. It's really a platform for advertising. It isn't content, it's advertising. The only reason why they care about content is because they care about how many viewers and how many listeners they can get so that they can brag to the advertisers, we're raising the price because she got 1 million people last week, or she got 2 million people in the last 3 months to listen to her. And so now we got to raise. Now, see, in my business, doing it this way, where I work for me, I vet the advertisers. So you're never going to hear schlock on this show. Okay. If you hear ITM Trading, it's because I've traded with ITM Trading, or I bought gold from ITM Trading. If you hear Tempest Tile, it's because I have Tempest Tile in my house, because I saw what they do. They made my tile, and because they hand make tile. I mean, it's an amazing place. They ship 45,000 tons of tile every single year. Okay. If I tell you about Herky Jerky, it's because I know Herky Jerky. I know their product. I know who Jason is. I know. Okay, that's how we work. Facebook sells me an ad. They'll offer me an ad every single day. They'll offer me an ad. I take them up on it on Fridays. Always on Fridays. Some other days, but always on Friday. I never talk to a person. This is why you hear me joking about, hey, algorithm, don't take down my show. Seriously, you never talk to a person. Ever. They know my bank account number. Oh, yes, they do. And they have algorithms running in the background of every show, every single one, to find out whether or not I violated a copyright. Okay, because if I did, then they won't let me. They won't let me make money off of my own show. They'll pull it down. But you never talk to a human being. And I am so sorry, but showing up is business.
To speak to Randi, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
Randi Rhodes. Air Force.
Yeah, you could buy tile at a chain store if you wanted to. You could wait for a kid to try and answer your questions about what's this made of, or how do I install it, or what's in stock. But what if you wanted serious craftsmanship? What if you wanted custom design, handmade, to order from your imagination, or an inspiration photo that you love? Probably you think you can't anymore, but I did. When it was time to shop tile, I came across a family-owned business that still handcrafts each and every individual tile, matching your colors, your inspiration, your design. Tempest Tile Works. They're based in Portland, Oregon, and they still handcraft the most magnificent tile. Let them match to your fabrics, or to your countertops, or to anything you can envision for your bath or kitchen. Teeny tiny tiles to oversized, their art or yours. It's all doable, it's all affordable, and it's all individually made just for your project. Visit Tempest Tile Works and look at their amazing gallery of designs and styles, and give up the chain stores. Tempest Tile Works, custom made. TempestTileWorks.com.
Hey, Progressive Voices listeners, I'm Rebecca Vallis, host of Off Kilter, powered by the Center for American Progress Action Fund. This week, I sat in for Tom Hartman on the Tom Hartman program, and this week for Off Kilter, we are bringing you a few of the conversations I had. Let's take a listen. Joining me is Jared Bernstein. He is a fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. He's also the former chief economist for Vice President Joe Biden. Lots of good news on the poverty rate now reaching actually pre-recession levels for the first time that we've seen that. Incomes up, health insurance coverage now at record highs. So 2016 was another good news year all around on the heels of 2015. What's driving this progress?
Well, the tightening labor market, of course, plays an important role. The unemployment rate last year, 2016, was a little bit below 5%. We were creating, about 180,000 jobs per month. That's a good clip. And in fact, one of the things that we saw pretty clearly in the data is that more people went to work, went into the labor market, and many people shifted from more part-time to full-time work, and that would increase their annual income, boosting both middle-class incomes and lowering poverty. This is an important theme that you and I have discussed, and I know it's one that looms large for you. And this is the idea that, if people have access to gainful, remunerative employment opportunities, I'm talking about low-income people, they will take advantage of them. And so too often the poverty debate, especially from the conservative side, focuses exclusively on people themselves as if they don't have a job because they don't want a job. More often than not, especially if we're talking about able-bodied working-age people, they very much want and need employment, but it's the demand side of the equation, the availability of good jobs that's left out. So that improved a bit in 2016.
So what role do we think that state and local minimum wage increases that we've seen over the past couple of years, which we know drove a lot of the progress in the 2015 historic gains on poverty and on income that we saw census report last year, what do we think that state and local minimum wage increases had to do with the gains that we've continued to see into 2016?
Well, these data only came out earlier this week, and we're still parsing some of those kinds of questions, but we have seen consistently that states which raise their minimum wage above the federal level stuck at $7.25, of course, and has been there for many years now, those states tend to show greater wage increases for low-wage workers. That's kind of intuitive. And since they don't really have much of a negative impact on employment availability, they tend to boost people's income as well. So you've got people working more employment, more hours typically at higher wages. And so I suspect that when we crunch the numbers, we'll find that poverty reductions have been significant in places that raised their minimum wages.
Now, obviously, when it comes to health insurance, it's hard to have a conversation about progress when it comes to health insurance rates now reaching record highs without mentioning the Affordable Care Act, which Republicans are not quite done trying to repeal. We'll be talking about that later in the show with Andy Slavitt. But I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about what you view as kind of the flip side of the story from census. We've got all of this good news, but it isn't because of decisions that we're seeing under the Trump administration. Thanks for listening. For more Off Kilter, find us on the Progressive Voices Network and as a podcast on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at Off Kilter Show and at Facebook.com/Off Kilter Show.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
But even without our employees directly involved in the sales, we can do better. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're going to catch all bad content in our system. We don't check what people say before they say it, and frankly, I don't think society should want us to. Freedom means you don't have to ask for permission first, and that by default, you can say what you want. And if you break our community standards or you break the law, then you're going to face consequences afterwards. We won't catch everyone immediately, but we can make it harder to try to interfere.
This really blows my mind, because here's Zuckerberg doing a complete 180 after he's served with a search warrant on thousands and thousands of ads that we now learn were placed by Russian agents in a troll farm in St. Petersburg, Russia, which, a story that we covered months and months ago, along with Cambridge Analytica and Brad Pascal's Alamo Project, okay? And Jared's bragging to Forbes magazine about, how he's using Facebook and he's micro-targeting. And so Zuckerberg knew he was taking political ads because they were saying that they were taking political ads that were endorsing a candidate, okay? It's not political talk and it's not the free... But he says if you violate his community standards, now this is creepy because they do have these, nebulous community standards at Facebook, which are policed by algorithms that make mistakes every single day, because every day somebody tries to pull down our show, and every day I find at least two people that are frauds, complete and utter frauds, that are claiming a copyright that they don't own, or claiming, okay, like yesterday, I'll give you an example, real world example. Yesterday I get a notice that Facebook wants to pull down the show because of the rejoin music, okay, the music that plays underneath, to talk to Randi, dial 561-270-3844, that's with Duffy's voice on it. That is Duffy, okay? And they say, oh, I own that music. They don't own that music because that music comes from a company called SoundBlocks that I pay a subscription fee to, and they deliver to me what they call contemporary production music, meaning it's, as long as you pay for the subscription, this music is yours to use. No artist is involved that, you have to compensate. No tune is so identifiable that it would violate, somebody else's publishing rights. So they create their, okay, and that's why that music is that music. And you hear it on a lot of radio shows. That's called production music. And in order to be able to play it, you have to pay them. You have to pay that. So I got 2 complaints like that yesterday from 2 people that said that they owned they named it, they gave it some stupid name and everything. And I have to take up my time every night, every day, and answer these copyright claims that are being leveled against us fraudulently just to see if they can pull down our show. And Facebook really needs human beings, because then I could call the human being and say, okay, I'm calling on behalf of the Randi Rhodes Show. I am Randi Rhodes, and I want you to know that this is my ASCAP license number. This is my BMI number. This is my production companies. I own sound block, permission. I own video blocks permission to use their video, and I pay for this stuff, right? And so I shouldn't have to, fight your algorithm every freaking day. But he's insisting that they do political business with political advertising, which is regulated minimally, but it is regulated by the Federal Election Commission without human beings. And with the caveat that you can't violate Mark Zuckerberg's community standards, whatever he deems them to be, because he believes in freedom. Listen, I don't want to trash you on your own platform because, you could pull me down because you don't like what I say. I don't know that that's part of your community standards, but if you should decide to write it in there that we can't, talk about you, or we can't complain about this craziness of your community and the standards that are yours, not anybody else's, then, pull me down and just get it over with so that I'll stop spending money on your platform, because that is what I do. But that's just part of what happened this week, okay? That's just part. We had the lawyers that lunch, and then we found out that on Wednesday, that Bob Mueller has requested documents from the White House, and he's interested in 3 very pivotal events, okay? He's interested in Comey's firing, which means he's pursuing an obstruction of justice charge. He's interested in the meeting that Trump had in the Oval Office with Sergei Kislyak and Lavrov, who is, for all intents and purposes, the Secretary of State to Vladimir Putin, where he called Comey a nut job the day after he fired him and reported to them some secret information that was, code word protected. So he's also interested in that. And because the president disclosed classified information, and even though the president can declassify whatever he wants to, he's more interested in the intent or the reason and the timing of this meeting, and then telling them that he's so glad the Russia investigation ended. Comey's gone. We're free now, whatever, So he wants that. And he also is interested in the firing of Michael Flynn and what Sally Yates told Don McGahn. Now, you might think that because Sally Flynn and Don McGahn were lawyers or whatever, that there's some, executive privilege that the White House can. There is an exception to executive privilege, and it is a criminal exception. You cannot claim any privilege, executive or lawyer of client, if you're covering up a crime. And Mueller knows that. And that's why I think the lawyers went to lunch. Ty Cobb sat there. Oh, and by the way, gracias para la noticia de Ty Cobb, that Ty Cobb played for the Detroit Tigers. Some guy wrote me entirely in Spanish, telling me that I keep saying that Ty Cobb was a Yankee and he was a Detroit Tiger for 100 years. Yes. So there you have it. So gracias. Muchas gracias. And then Ty Cobb goes out to lunch with John Dowd, and they're sitting talking loudly next door to the New York Times at an open-air lunch place, complaining about their chaos client and how there's so much turmoil in the Trump legal team because they want to cooperate. They want to cooperate. They want to get fired is what it is. They know they got a losing case. They know that their names will go down in infamy like Ken Starr's did. Do you know what I mean? And then the Senate Intelligence Committee cancels a planned interview, a private interview, with Michael Cohen, the longtime attorney to Donald Trump at Trump Tower, right? He's the Trump organization attorney that Trump brings into the White House now. And Michael Cohen was set to give testimony in secret to the Senate Intelligence Committee. And they told him just, the arrangement, they negotiated this. Michael Cohen negotiated with the Intelligence Committee that he would testify in private. He wouldn't talk to the media. He would keep everything on the hush-hush. He would never leak. He would never. And then he releases his testimony ahead of his appearance. And then the Senate Intelligence Committee cancels him and then reschedules him for a public session on October 25th. So now we get to hear him on October 25th. Then we find out about the Facebook stuff, okay, that yes, Mueller is sure that Facebook received money in rubles, no less, in freaking rubles. This is what really pisses me off. And then we find out that Flynn was supposedly trying to give nuclear plants to the Middle East in a partnership with the Russian nuclear agency. And then we find out that there's this big effort to trash Comey last week all over Fox News and all over, the radio talk shows. They're saying they believe that Comey should face the Justice Department and he should be prosecuted, and that this is what Trump wants. And Trump is recommending this, okay? Now, it's very unusual for a president to recommend anybody be prosecuted, let alone anybody, that seems to be an enemy of the president. I mean, it's just really, really creepy. And then Axios yesterday reports that Sean Spicer's colleagues talked to Mike Allen and told Mike Allen, these people are going to wish they were nicer to Spicer than they were, because Sean Spicer took notes on every meeting he ever took. He kept notes on everything that went on in the White House. He kept notes on every meeting. He kept notes on every person he spoke to. And he's always kept notes, to the point where they were kidding him about, you're going to write a tell-all one of these days. And then the Wall Street Journal reported that some of Trump's lawyers, recommended that Jared Kushner leave the White House because he's super exposed. He's a liability. He had too many connections to Russia. Too many. And then the Daily Beast reports that Mueller added a guy to the prosecution team, a guy named James Quarles from the Watergate prosecution team. Oh my God. Congress is back. Yeah, that's the only reason why we know any of this, is because Congress is back. It's just the way that Washington works, and also I should tell you that we also learned that Mueller is partnering with the IRS investigative unit. Mm-hmm. And they're looking into Kushner's meeting with the I can't say it. I'll just call it VB Bank. Spasiba Bank. Yes. And they're looking into that, and the meeting with Kislyak that Kushner had, and all. I mean, this is just, you can't throw a spitball at anybody in the White House without hitting somebody with Russian dealings. You just, it's impossible. It can't be done. So what does Trump do? This is what he tweeted today. This is why I went through this whole bullet-pointed list and prepared it for you for this, right? Just to get to this. Here's his tweet from this morning. The Russian hoax continues. Now it's ads on Facebook. What about the totally biased and dishonest media coverage in favor of crooked Hillary? I hate to break this to him. There was no coverage of Hillary. Everybody knows it. This entire election cycle was all Trump, all day, every day, all the time, on all the channels. Okay, that's what it was. There was no mention. Hillary was a big yawn. Okay, nobody. The only time I think I saw Hillary on TV was a couple of debates where he stalked her, right? And she says made her skin crawl. And when she fainted. Remember, they were trying to get her into the car before she actually lost it? Yeah, that. And then, of course, the Russians were the ones that put the ads out that said that she's near death and that she's got a brain thing. And, this is why she wore the thick glasses when she testified for 11 hours about Benghazi. Yeah. That was Russia. That was Russia that was telling you these things. And then you tell them to me and you want to know, why do I laugh at you? It's not because there's a Harley where your penis should be. And you know who I'm talking to. He knows who I'm talking to. And I know half these accounts. Go check my Facebook page over the weekend. You'll see, because I will buy the ad for the show tonight, because it's Friday, and I do it all the time. We give away the whole show for free, and then we put money behind it. Thanks to you, we can do that. And I micro-target guys with Harleys, you know, this kind of thing. Because you could really, really pick. I mean, like, down to the initials of their name. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable. And you can pick Hitler lovers if you want. And, you know, I kind of do. But when you start seeing these comments, go check their Facebook page. Nothing but white beards, leather jackets, old men, and Harleys. Half of them are probably Russian trolls. The other half are the half you have to talk to, because they're so misinformed. And they're loyal to Vlad the Impaler. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. Have a great weekend. Buy a stinking podcast. Go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.